Hi, and welcome back to Dirty Bernie's Garage. Today's episode is going to be about these two mowers here. These are two scrapyard specials that I bought. What I'm going to be doing is combining the two and making one good mower out of the two. I'll explain this whole thing in a second to you. But let me grab you. We're going to give these things a quick walk around so I can show you what's going on with them and give you a game plan. Alright, mower number one. Actually, let me push it in the garage. It'll be a little easier to see in the shade. Mower number one. This is an old weed eater. It went until it breathed its final breath recently. It's got a bent crankshaft and it was run long enough to the point where it threw a connecting rod. So the engine is nothing more than a paperweight. The engine actually started pretty much had removed itself already. It's ready to go at any time. We have, if you notice right here, we got a big old chunk missing out of the block. And what had happened, you know, they tried to bolt it over here and the engine actually vibrated enough where it broke that tab right off. This is what happens when you run a mower with a bent crankshaft. It's just excessive vibration. It will destroy a mower in a matter of, well, it depends how long you use it, how hard you use it. You're also going to notice we got some meltage here from the muffler. I believe what we're going to find is when the crankshaft bent, the flywheel key's partially sheared, which would cause that, and plus probably running out of oil. And everything. One other thing I wanted to point out, you can see you can't see the crankshaft, but the blade also, they probably ended up wiggling the bolt right out of it. They threw this looks to be a socket or something, I don't know. There should not be a space like this under the blade. The bolt should be flush against the blade, so I don't know what went on there. The deck is actually in decent enough shape on this mower where I can actually use it. So we're gonna go ahead and put another engine on it. We're gonna be using all the externals off of this engine and putting another short block on it, or long block, whatever you wanna call it, and go ahead and make it into a runner again and get it out for sale. Now, push this out of the way. Pull this one in. This is mower number two. So old snapper. You notice AWD, just like your car, stands for all-wheel drive. This mower has a transmission in the front and a transmission in the rear. So when you hit self-propel, all four wheels go. These mowers are excellent as far as if you got something with some big hills, you got something with some rough terrain, they do really nice. The problem being with these mowers, I personally feel they are underpowered with this style engine. This is the E style, that's what I call them anyway. This is actually a little bit bigger of an engine than what's on the green mower, but it will work just fine. But the problem being, like I said, you're pulling two transmissions, and these all-wheel drive mowers, they have no cutout on the side for a side discharge, so they're actually mulching the whole time. People are out there in the wet, tall grass. It's just plugging the deck up, overheats the heck out of the engine to the point you can actually see the oil is black as midnight. This oil is burnt is what's going on with it. So we're gonna go ahead and clear that issue. Now a lot of people are gonna be wondering, well, okay, why aren't you fixing this snapper? I am going to be fixing this snapper, but what's gonna go on with it, it's gonna go on as its next life is what's called a Frankenmower. I have a master's degree in building them, by the way. Frankenmower basically is a mower that never was. So as far as engine wise, we're gonna shoot some steroids into this thing, give it a lot more power than it had, originally. I will be cutting a window right here, and then we're gonna put a side discharge on it and everything. Trust me, look out in a future episode, the snapper will be back, and I'll show you how to build a lawnmower from scratch. So basically what we're gonna do, we're gonna be taking the lower end off of the snapper, putting it on a green mower here, get that thing prepped up for sale. And what I can do with this, I can make my money back off of both engines, both mowers rather, and give somebody a really good deal on a run and push mower, and everybody will be happy, and my snapper will be paid off and everything. So that's what's going to go on here. Also in this video, when I take this engine apart, I got to do a little tutorial for a good friend of mine who needs some help with a carburetor. So this is going to end up being a two-part video. But for right now, let me go ahead and get these engines off, and then we'll go up to the next part and go from there with it. Alright, so here's a little walk around. This is the engine that come off the snapper. I went ahead and pulled it all apart. I just give it a quick shot of paint. Nothing major. But when I sell these mowers, I sell them as reconditioned, so all oil leaks are fixed. We're going to have the ignition all cleaned up and whatnot, and with a fresh coat of paint. So there's that part. Now up next, we're going to start on this other engine. Yeah, right. Here's another segment I wanted to cover in this video. I had a very good friend of mine, Tina Brown McMullen, reach out to me the other day asking about redoing one of these plastic carburetors. This is the original engine off the Weed Eater. As I said, I'm going to be using all these original parts, so I'm going to go ahead and do kind of a detailed thing on as far as pulling the engine apart, removing the carburetor, cleaning the carburetor, and getting it ready back up for action again. So this is going to be there's going to be some back and forth with the camera and whatnot, so just bear with me. Hopefully this whole video will be beneficial to a lot of people, because there's a lot of people out there that think these plastic carburetors are non-rebuildable. They are very rebuildable, and I'm going to show you just how easy they are. So just bear with me for a few minutes, and we're going to get going on this. First off, we're going to go ahead and pop this pull starter. Technically you don't have to do this part, but it's actually easier to see the carburetor, and also you can actually clean out some of the vents and whatnot. So anyway, we're gonna start off, we're gonna go ahead and pull the bolts out of this. Normally this would have 3 bolts. This Weed Eater, as hacked up as it is, it's only gonna have 2. But you got one here, and you would normally have one here, which is missing. So we're gonna go ahead and pull those 3 bolts and pop this pull starter off. Alright, this just takes a 5/16 or 8mm, whatever you prefer. And as I said, there would normally be 3. There's only 2 on this engine, but I got more in stock off of the other engine, so it's a big deal. They shouldn't be this tight either, but you know how that goes. This engine's been hacked up bad, so nothing surprises me anymore with it. And luckily we're not going to have to use the actual retainer off of this engine, so that really doesn't bother me at all. So with those 2 bolts removed, that just pops right off of here. I'll set this over here for a minute. Alright, gonna go ahead and remove this gas tank. You're gonna see right here and right here. This is a metal plate that holds the pull starter on. These are just slotted. So this gas tank just fits into those slots. I'm gonna try and do it by hand here. It just actually pulls up. Yeah, I can't do it with one hand, unfortunately. But that gas tank's just gonna pull out of those slots. Like so. Alright. Little spring clip that holds a gas line on. I went ahead and cut that gas line for right now. That one is bad anyway. But I will, I'll show you this after in another later on in the video. All right. So. All right, this carburetor has 4 bolts, but you're only gonna have to undo 2 of them. Right here, directly across from it right here. These are both 5/16 bolts. All right, you got a couple smaller ones here, but you do not need to do that because this whole plate's gonna stay on the carburetor as you pull it. So we're gonna need a 5/16 socket here. And the importance, like I said, of pulling that pull starter, what I like to do on these, even when we're doing a carburetor, you want to make sure all your fins out here are clean. As I mentioned in other videos, the air-cooled engine, you need those fins clean in order to, you know, for this engine to run right. So it's actually a very good idea to go ahead and pull that pull cover. That way you know everything's good. There's no sense of rebuilding your carburetor and then having an engine that's all plugged up and it's going to start overheating. Alright, with those 2 bolts removed, then it's just a matter of pulling your carburetor out. This plastic piece here is going to have 2 alignment pins in it, which are going to go into this metal plate. So you go ahead like so. Alright. Now this is another thing I want to explain while we're here. There is a piece of linkage on here. Alright, it's back to some carburetor stuff. First off, I want you to see this little piece of linkage here. This is called a Z end. That's what attaches your carburetor to the linkage on a mower. What it's going to do, there's a hole in the actual throttle here. That thing goes just like so. So when it, this other end would normally be attached to the engine, but that's what's going to run your throttle. So when you remove this from the mower, you're basically going to just take your carburetor, twist it like so, and pull it out of there. I'll show you when I'm putting it on later. Now here is your gas line. This is a new piece that I got, but I wanted to show you these clips here are called spring clips. You got one tab here and two on this side. And in order to release these, you're just going to take a pair of needle nose pliers and squeeze it. That allows it to go ahead and to be released from the thing. Now on this end, I have the gas line attached to the carburetor still. So you're going to go ahead and squeeze it, pull your line out a little bit. It's a barbed fitting, so it'll wrestle you a little bit, but just like so. You can release this from either the tank or the actual carburetor itself, but it's easier to have one of the two released when you take the carburetor off the engine. Now, up next, I want to show you a couple little scenarios that are common when removing this carburetor. This little piece here is called your vent tube. All right, you're gonna see on one end it's got a barbed fitting. It's basically looks like it'd be the same as the one that the fuel line goes on. A lot of times when you go to pull this carburetor off the intake, it will this thing will pop out of place, and it's very easy. That goes in this hole just above where the fuel line is. This big hole here. All right, your barbed fitting's always going to stick out. There's nothing that actually attaches to this. I'm guessing that it is for some other option on another mower or something. I've yet to run into it though. But anyway, you go ahead and put that in and just give her a little tug. Give her a little push rather. And it snaps in place. So that's all back where it belongs. Now, another very common issue. This is your intake manifold on the engine. You're going to see this little white thing, and there's also a little O-ring there. A lot of times what happens when you remove the carburetor, that will stay on the intake, and you cannot have that just because this is what seals the carburetor to the intake. So, very easy. You pull your O-ring, you pull the little white piece. Bring that over here to your carburetor. The O-ring slides in first, then the little white piece goes on, and again, that just snaps. You could snap it right in by hand. So that's now when you put that carburetor back out at intake, that's gonna seal it. All right, another thing you wanna notice, this carburetor is pretty filthy. Being plastic is a very good thing here. I'm gonna go ahead outside and clean this thing. It's just a matter of spraying it with a little bit of cleaner and blasting it with a garden hose, and it'll clean up beautiful. And then we're gonna go ahead and take it apart. So I'll be back in a minute. All right, so we got our carburetor all squeaky clean. As I said, this thing, you know, these clean up really nice and easy. So now we're gonna go ahead and take this thing apart. All right, it's called your float bowl. You're gonna have a screw here and a screw here. These take a 9/32 socket. So we're gonna go ahead and zap those two out of there real quick. These only thread into plastic, so when you tighten them back up, you can't go crazy with them. But, you know, it's just a matter of snugging them up a little bit. All right, with those two out, you can go ahead and pull your float bowl. You're gonna notice this little space right here, my finger is, so you can literally take a, like a screwdriver or something, kind of give it a little pry. Of course, this one's gonna make a liar out of me. Once you get it in there a little bit, you can go ahead and pry the, there we go. You get a little bit of a thing, go ahead and pry your float bowl out. That's gonna come right out. Okay, there's gonna be a bunch of gas and water and whatnot mixed in with this. We're gonna go ahead and dump that. Now, again, as I said, this is plastic. The beauty of plastic carburetors is they do not, they don't corrode, they don't rust, you know, all that stuff. So you're gonna take your float bowl, just try to give it a quick jab like that. That thing's clean as can be. I'm gonna let it sit there and dry out. Same with the carburetor. I'm gonna go ahead and fold it up like so. Give her a shot. Carburetor is clean. Now what we're going to be going after here is your jet, which is right here. You're going to notice that the jet always sits your jet is always going to sit towards the rear of the carburetor where the plate is. Okay, now what you want to do, we're going to remove this jet. So what you're going to do, you got this little end sticking out here. Go ahead and lean your screwdriver up against the plate here. Just give her a quick twist. All right, that's going to pop right out of there. And here's your culprit for this carburetor. Now, I just did the main important thing on this entire carburetor by pulling that jet. Where I had just cleaned the base of this carburetor, where I blasted it with carburetor cleaner, this thing's done. Okay, so I'm gonna explain something here. What you have, okay, this is your main jet. This is gonna feed your fuel to up to the tube. Over here, this is called your emulsion tube. That's gonna feed air. So, between the two, you're gonna have your air coming down this way, your fuel coming up here. This is your middle piece. That actually goes into the throat of the carburetor. So the gas and the air, that's where it mixes. It's gonna shoot up into the throat of the carburetor, and that goes up in your engine, and that's all there is to this carburetor. So, as I said, these things are so simple that it's mind-boggling how people they just can't figure out how to fix them. they tell you to replace them, blah, blah, blah. All right, this is pretty much impossible to see, but now this is your jet. You're just gonna take a little, now this is just a little piece of florist wire, one of the ones you would wrap flowers in or whatnot. There's a very, very small hole in the middle of this jet. You're gonna poke your wire through there, and then the emulsion tube is the same exact way. That's got a little hole in it. Now you can do this with regular wire. Now what I suggest is, this is my little paper clip trick that I showed in a previous video. This paper clip would normally be too big to fit inside of that jet, but if you look at the very end here, you're gonna see I shaved it down a little bit. I put this on a grinding wheel on my bench grinder, and I ground it down. Now, not only does that gonna fit in there, but where I ground this, it's gonna have an actual rough surface to it. So what it's gonna do, it's gonna get inside that jet. There's a little lip in there. Now, your regular wire would go ahead and it'll poke through and shoot the dirt out of it. But what this does, being the rough edge, you put it in there and you twist it a little bit, that's gonna get the dirt out of your, the actual wall of the jet. Now, you can go ahead and, poke it with regular wire and you can get the mower running again. But what this is gonna do, I'm gonna scrape all the dirt off of that wall, so that way it doesn't give any new dirt that enters the carburetor, it's not gonna have anything to stick to, because basically what I'm doing is I'm gonna factory reset this thing. So what you're gonna do on your jet, go ahead and get it in there. You're gonna twist it a little bit, okay? That rough surface went ahead and that cleared some dirt out of there. Same thing with the one on your emulsion tube. Go ahead and get that in there and twist her a little bit, okay? What I did there is went ahead and, I cleaned that wall out a little bit. So that way, it's just gonna give something just a little bit cleaner. Then, you go ahead and take your carburetor cleaner. You're gonna notice the very top here when I spray this, how you got, all right? Same with your emulsion tube. Go ahead and spray that. Now, a lot of times I'll go ahead and afterwards, I'll blast these things with air. I don't have the compressor turned on today, but that's all there is to it. Right there. This jet is clean, and I'll guarantee you this carburetor will work perfect after this. So what we're gonna do, give this thing a quick wipe down. You're gonna notice you have this little black stripe here. You have another one here. These are O-rings. These just seal to the carburetor itself. So what I do, little WD-40. All right, we're gonna spread that on there. That, as I said, that's gonna lubricate these O-rings so they slide in a little better. And it's not harmful to them. So, as I said, this jet always faces towards the rear of the carburetor. It'll only fit in one way. But now you're gonna go ahead, go like so, and I don't know if you could hear that or not, it snapped in place. Okay? Same thing with this float bowl. You got this reddish colored O-ring. go ahead and do all that. You do not have to do this to any of them. I just personally prefer it. Alright. You're gonna notice on your float bowl, this is actually a drainage thing, but you got this little indent right here. That's always gonna go over your jet. So it's gonna fit on just like so. Line that up and press it down in. Now we'll go ahead and tighten those bolts up. Just got to snug these. You don't have to go crazy with them. As I said, this is, you know, plastic carburetor, so you don't want to go nuts and strip them out. Okay. Wipe this down real quick. There you have it, folks. This carburetor is ready for service, and I will prove that later in a video when we get the mower running. Hopefully this is going to help out Tina and hopefully anybody else that watches this video. This is going to wrap up part 1 of this video, and afterwards we'll go ahead and start up part 2. So we'll see you then.